everyone. Oh wait, let me point my microphone towards myself so I don't sound like I'm across the room. Hello. Hello everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Aoi Shiro. It's been a long week so far. It is just Tuesday, I guess. Alright, well, we've got a lot to cover because there's a possibility, slim ever how it may be, that we may get to the end of Migiwa's route today. I'm not 100% sure. Let me go and check my other monitor for my handy dandy spreadsheet on where exactly we are and how many other choices we have. But we're on day 4 and close to the end of it, and this game only, you know, like, as long as we've been going, and I know that we've been going for well over a month, 2 months? Yeah, pretty long time now. Only 4 days have passed in diegetic time. So let's see, let's double check our... Let's double check our ending requirements here. Hello, Sarah. Welcome. Welcome. It's possible that this week we might even see more Yuri. It was exciting that we saw some Yuri last week. You know, we got, like, not one but 2 kisses. Depending on what we consider the CPR awkward one. But, anyhow, yeah, we've only got, 5 more dialogue choices. Yeah, 5 more dialogue choices. So, let's go ahead and get started as, if we all remember, everybody's at the beach having, like, a party at night, like, grilling, and of course the adult here, the adults are having a legally non-distinct beer. These are such cute scenes, too. The adults had alcoholic drinks, while those not of drinking age used non-alcoholic drinks to say cheers. We were at the Unisaka beach. The worrisome weather and sudden shower had cleared up, and the stars were even slightly visible. On top of a large grill used to cook outdoors, and above the smoke carrying the smell, plenty of meat was being grilled. For our last dinner at Unisaka, we were having a barbecue with a smorgasbord of ingredients. Sorry, eating the last bit of a little molasses cookie. Well, it's okay if adults drink responsibly and don't damage their health. I wanted to talk with her about the appearance of the Morio at the beach at dusk, but I didn't see her around. I thought that she would show up when it was time for dinner. I didn't think she'd be such an idiot to sit alone in the dining room waiting for everyone else, not knowing about the barbecue. I asked Shiro had exchanged addresses with her on the first night here, and the message of the mail from her private address said as follows. There was nothing much to the message. Only I understood the context of those words. Migiwa had already gone over there. Migiwa said she was meeting up with reinforcements, but after saying that, she'd crossed over the stepping stones at low tide. I should have known that. Eloquent Migiwa had a clever way of speaking. I wondered if the talk about reinforcements and such was just a bluff to get me to back down. Alright. Time for a choice, time for a decision. Do we just like hesitate, or do we go to the stepping stones? How do I access the chat? Here we go. This is giving me an opportunity to just stir my tea. It's strange how I remember what happens at the end of this route, but for the life of me, I could not tell you what happens, like, right next. The period between Migiwa CPR scene and the final scene is actually a blur in my memory, and it was 15 years ago, so I'm amazed that I remember anything at all. But, you know, let's go ahead and go towards the stepping stones. I think it was better to check, if it wasn't possible right now, just in case. I pretended to take a walk, to walk off the meal, and headed towards the Oni stepping stones. The tide had probably risen along with the disappearing sunset. There was no road ahead for me. People say that summer nights by the ocean are all about fireworks. After stuffing ourselves until we couldn't eat anymore, everyone went to set off fireworks. Many different types of fireworks were prepared, from incense stick type ones that you hold in your hand to the ones fired in the air. Momoko wasn't the only one who was in a good mood. Everyone was having fun. This was probably Nami's first time seeing fireworks, and she seemed to be very interested in the different colors of flame. Yasumi pulled her back into a safe zone. Everyone, who for the past couple days had stayed under the same roof and eaten from the same pot, were gathered around here having fun. Excluding Migiwa, who'd gone over there. Besides Migiwa and I. Everyone was having an enjoyable evening. Since Migiwa's message had said, "excuse her for a bit," Shiro seemed to think that she'd be back after the barbecue. It's true that I knew Migiwa's location. I knew it, but... On the yachts. Wow. Wow, Shoko's not bitter at all. I thought she'd recognize my abilities a bit, but it was just my overinflated opinion of myself. If she'd beaten me up and left while I was unconscious, I might not be as vexed as I am right now. Even though it wasn't that difficult to understand the difference in power between her and I. In the end, even though I worked really hard, I was still only at this level. I like how pissy she sounds. I left the area where everyone was enjoying the fireworks and went to walk by the beach. After walking a while, I could see the black shadow that Urashima cast on the sea. Over there in the dark, I wondered if Migiwa and Natsune-san were exchanging blows, causing sparks to fly. The sparks from the flint lit up the gunpowder fuse. The hot, fleeting flames scattered and flew through the air in my place, across the water's edge towards the other shore and headed to Urashima. I suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. It's not that I woke up. I hadn't been able to fall asleep. Many different emotions were running through my chest, and I couldn't fall asleep. Like how the waves near the reefs on the shore of Unasaka were complicated. The feelings in my chest were a mess as well. I knew it was useless to keep my eyes closed. If I shut my eyelids, my feelings would just become more vivid. There really was no helping it. Though it would accomplish nothing, I took the familiar Komochi and headed towards the Oni stepping stones that Migiwa had guarded. The shadow of Urashima looked close enough to touch. The shadow of Urashima in front of me. Natsune-san, who said she was an Oni, and Migiwa, whose job it was to slay Oni. They'd both gone there earlier. But the road of that place was closed now. The way to raise the road from beneath the waves wasn't to utter magic words like, "Open the door, Goma." It was just the passage of time. It would be different if I had an orb that could control the tides like Yamasachi Hiko got from the Sea God's Palace. A precious orb that can control the rise and fall of the tides was in a place I couldn't reach. It was a far, far 3,800,000 kilometers. I guess it's 380,000 kilometers away from here, floating in the sky. When that orb sinks below the horizon, the tides of the ocean would also be drawn far away. The moon was still high in the sky. When it comes to my own luck. Oops. Oh. It would be around dawn before the stepping stones were fully visible. I've been tapping the wooden sword against the stones with my feet without being aware of it. The rhythm of my tapping was probably several times faster than the speed of the hands on a clock. Alright. Are we gonna go back, or are we gonna don't go back? Are we gonna go back or not go back? Hard to text? Oh, Bastet is on your lap. Oh, that's actually very helpful, though. Bastet is inspiring your choices. Alright, well, If you don't have a preference, Sarah, and if none of the other viewers have a preference, then since we're close to the end of the route, I am going to do the one that, according to the guide, no, you gotta use a sharp, a pound sign. It's okay, I'll pick that one for you, Sarah. I stared at the ocean for a while. I knew that staring at the ocean wasn't going to make the stepping stones appear faster, but I still stared at the wavering surface of the water. I heard the heavy sound of 10, 20 waves folding on top of each other. Wondered how long have I been here. I didn't notice any difference in the height of the waves, so it shouldn't have been hours, but it might have been tens of minutes. After staring at the ocean without doing anything for a while, I returned to Shoshinji. I looked at the futon next to me. The futon that Nami should have been sleeping in was as empty as mine. No matter how small and slim Nami was, I would be able to tell if she were in the futon. She'd also been attached to Yasumi, so maybe she was in her futon over there? I went to the futon where Yasumi was sleeping, but the top layer of the futon was very thin. I didn't even need to pull back the covers to know that only Yasumi was there. Yasumi pulled back the futon and rubbed her sleepy eyes as she woke. After a yawn, she finally... After looking at my face, she realized it wasn't something simple like that. I was an idiot. Weren't we attacked by Morio this evening? Didn't I determine that their target was Nami? If that was the case, then I shouldn't have left her alone. I clenched my teeth. Even if I gritted my teeth now, though, it wouldn't solve anything. It's been quite a while since Yasumi woke everyone up to look for Nami. But time felt shorter since we were hurrying. Everyone was desperately searching, but I was certain that no matter how much we searched, we would never find her. The little mermaid who floated here from the ocean was brought back to where she came from. To the island where Natsune-san headed after stealing the sword from Suten, and where Migiwa had disappeared, chasing after her. Everything was on that island. In that case, I prepared myself using the least amount of... Slightly awkward still. Better than the official translation, but you can still tell that this is a fan translation. They did really good, though. I prepared myself using as little as I could, making sure no one else would see me. They would definitely stop me if they knew what I was doing, so I was careful not to let anyone catch on. There was still a little bit of time left until low tide. As things stand right now, it would probably start raining on the way there. If I fell in the ocean, there was a high chance that I would not make it out okay. Even so, I headed towards Hiroshima. The further I traveled from Unosaka, the closer I got to Hiroshima. The wind gradually got stronger and stronger, as if to prevent people from sneaking into view of the festival today. The dragon god wanted to prevent me from entering the island. The strong wind felt as if it would blow me away. I clung to the rock for support and endured until it stopped. Rain hadn't started falling yet, but I didn't care how many times I'd been hit by the tall waves. I yelled in defiance against the wind. I shouted to encourage myself. I sought shelter in a cave that blocked the wind, and I was finally able to catch my breath. Water dripped down from my hair. The rain, which had wet my hair and the rising tide, sunk the stepping stones, the only road here, from both above and below. I hugged my shivering body and slid down against the rock face I was leaning on. The reason I was shaking was surely because of the cold. Was that thunderous noise the sound of the waves or the sound of the rain? I needed to rest and recover my stamina. I took off my wet shoes and began to massage my feet, which were complaining after their forced march through the storm. I was also concerned that Natsune-san, who Migi was chasing, was also considered the kinky. During the time I didn't have an eye on either of them, I'd hoped that they were able to avoid a battle where they got hurt. The sword that Natsune-san had stolen from the Sutun group of the Onikiribe. It was said to be constantly sealed in order to hide it from the eyes of the Sekiganki, who engaged in covert tactics to obtain it. Then the question was... There should be someone who told Natsune-san about the existence of the sword and encouraged her to steal it. It would be someone with knowledge about the sword who wanted to do something about that sealed item. Then, wouldn't that be the Sekiganki? As someone who had engaged in covert operations since forever, I didn't believe he would actually act like a normal human. And, for that matter... That person wearing Noble's clothes with her left eye constantly closed knew about the Sutun group. Was that person the Sekiganki? The one who taught Urashima's priest, the Nakata, about faith in Kuro-sama, was a one-eyed onmyoji. If that was the Sekiganki. Also, Natsune-san and I probably visited the Nakata mansion 8 years ago in summer. I might be off, or might be thinking in circles, but I still feel like I'll be able to meet Migiwa faster this way than searching at random. The one who managed all of Kuro-sama's ritual, the current head of the Nakata household, Nakata Munetsugu. I decided to head to the Nakata mansion. When I crossed over the stepping stones, the storm hadn't yet been at its peak. The merciless rain created large raindrops and thrashing wind, and the height of the waves was several times more than it was previously. That was close. Let's just suppose, if the storm's timing had been a little faster, it would have been strong enough to knock me over as I was crossing the stepping stones. I would have been at a standstill, clinging to the rocks with all my might, just not to be blown away by the storm. And as time passed, the rising tide would have swallowed me, and I would have drowned. I clenched my teeth to stop the shivers running down my back. I didn't come to Hiroshima to play some innocent adventure game. No, that's right. You came here to play some innocent Yuri dating sim. I was prepared to risk my life. It was a good thing that I recognized my actions from now on might put my life on the line. I stood at the entrance of the cave inside. The frightening wind and rain turned what should have been an island on land into a world filled with water. If I took one step from this cave, that world of water, at this time of the festival, the domain of Kuro-sama, should I dare to venture out here, or should I wait for the weather to settle down? Should we wait or not wait? Should we wait or not wait? I don't know. Should we wait or not wait? Sarah, you don't want to wait? Alright, we won't wait. However, after coming out of that den, I didn't want a tiger's cub, but a mermaid princess. The wind is blowing me away. I'd been prepared for this, but looking at it from the outside and actually experiencing the force were two different things. I planned on continuing through the forest, but if I let my guard down for even a moment, it felt like I was about to be pushed over. I kept my waist down lower than my center of gravity. Using the wooden sword as a third leg, I barely managed to move forward. Even if I could open them, the scenery around me was barely visible. However, even worse, if I faced the wind directly, it pressed against my chest, making breathing even more difficult. And all this water stinging against my skin. A strong, unseen force carried my body into the air. Before I could put my foot on the ground to step forward, the wind blew under me and carried me away. I only rose for a moment, feeling weightless, as if I lost my sense of up and down and was blown away in the chaos. Up should be where rain is falling on me, and down should be the opposite direction. As the calm part of my brain was thinking about all of that, the sensation of being blown away stopped. I might have been pushed around by the wind a bit, but it wasn't too high. However, my feet didn't land on the ground. I should have been walking through the forest, so when did the area around me open up? The strong wind distorted my field of vision, and all I could see was a muddy gray color. The reason, of course, that my feet still didn't touch the ground wasn't because time was compressed. I understood that right away. It was falling with incredible speed. The wind rotated my body. As my world spun around, I noticed the tall rocks jutting up. When did I leave the forest and come upon a cliff? No, there were probably cliffs in the forest. There was the sound of crashing through obstacles, but my consciousness remained intact. The only answer was with a roaring wind in my ear. I couldn't even hear my own voice. I'd fallen quite a distance. The ocean should have been liquid, but it was as hard as a rock when I hit it. There might have been rocks jutting out, but I couldn't tell. Amazing drowning voice work here, too. In the next instant, a wave swept me sideways and dragged me away. The petals vanish in the mighty wind. That's just my laundry, don't worry about that. Kaya route, Seal 1 has been unlocked. I like the surprise of these things. Don't worry. We had to do that eventually, so I let it happen. Don't worry. We'll get back there pretty quick. Alright. Migiwa. That Migiwa! That's where they're talking about Migiwa kissing her. I gave a shout. I bit into the meat, but it tasted like nothing. I let out a big sigh. It wasn't a sigh like one would make after eating delicious food like this. Though the food should have been delicious, it didn't really taste like anything. It was the sort of type of mechanical breath one takes when you know that there's no way to relieve the pain in your chest. People say that summer nights by the ocean are all about fireworks. After stuffing ourselves until we couldn't eat anymore, we set some off. Lots of different types of fireworks. Alright, here we go. Since Migiwa's message had said, "Excuse me" for a bit, Ayashiro seemed to think that she'd be back after the barbecue. It's true that I knew where she was. I knew, but... Sorry, I just wanted to hear Shoko be petulant again. Alright, skipping to the next choice. Alright, and then we're going to actually go back. There's no point in doing this. The night wind cooled down my head a bit and I could think more clearly again, so I decided to return to Shoshinji. Maybe she had followed me since I saw Nami tottering around on the beach. From the ocean, between Nami and I, Morio appeared. I gripped the wooden sword in my hand and kicked up rocks as I rushed forward. As I approached Nami, other Morio headed in my direction. They didn't seem to have much intellect, but at least they knew how to divide up roles when they're in a group. Or, since they were Shikigami, perhaps someone was controlling them like pieces on a chessboard. There was a feeling of contact against the wooden sword for just an instant. And then I thrust even further and it passed through. The Morio turned into something like black mist and vanished. If this were truly a living thing, I might not have been able to stand the spray of blood and vivid view of bone after cleaving something in half, but it wasn't that bad. The moment I defeated the Morio, the weight of the wooden sword increased, and I felt as if my body were being bound. As if I'd let the unpleasant sensation of their last moment stop me. I couldn't let something like this bother me. Silver Morio picked up and carried Nami as she squirmed. As she was surrounded by the bodies of Morio, Nami stretched out her small white hand towards me as if seeking my help. I swung Kumochi with all of my strength as I cut down the Morio in front of me. And no matter how many I defeated, countless more boiled up like endless waves. 1, 2, 3. I defeated one side of them. 4, 5, 6. I don't remember what happened after that. By the time I realized it, I'd lost sight of Nami. There wasn't one speck of Morio dust left, and I didn't know even how many I'd defeated as I was left alone on the beach. Where did they take her? Those things came from the ocean. Since many things were born of the ocean, perhaps something abnormal like an Oni might even be produced from it. But Migiwa said that they weren't naturally born, but artificially made as Shikigami. Migiwa also said that the one-eyed, white-haired Onmyoji Oni seeking the sword might have brought those rights to... Were they also headed to Urashima? Just like Natsunaisen, who had the sword in hand already. I didn't know what they wanted with Nami, but if their goal was to take her alive, they'd head... Yeah, hey! Hi again. As I turned to head back towards the Oni stepping stones, a person of small stature in red was constantly staring at Urashima. She'd pure white skin, pure white hair, and gave an inhuman aura as she was illuminated by the blue moonlight. No. I thought she was a Tsubaki spirit, but later learned Yasuhime-sama would be more fitting to be a manifestation of a Tsubaki. There's always desires or other things mixed in with legends, so they'll always differ from actual events. The person dressed in noble clothes of a man who shouldn't have been wouldn't have been like a traveling nun, Yasuhime. Then, if she were also connected to the same Tsubaki, was this person the grudge of the Oni king that had been sealed away? Matamu was the name of the form of the Oni king's grudge, right? It was a calamity whose form resembled that of an ox. As the Oni king's grudge, the left eye of that beast was also shot out, like how the Oni king's was damaged by the great shogun. And that person, who had her left eye closed, narrowed her right eye a bit and said in a teasing voice, God, she is so cool! She is the coolest girl! At my cautious voice, she revealed a canine-like fang as she snickered. She used the nail on her long pointer finger to press her closed left eye. Attack first and talk later, or ask questions? Now, I'm making a safety save here, because one of these options is necessary for Migiwa's route, and the other option might be necessary, maybe, to unlock a seal on Kohaku's route. So, which one we want to do first? We're gonna do Migiwa's first, actually. Attack first. This person had just confirmed that she was an Oni. I'd never seen this person open her tightly closed left eye. The winds, which day by day got stronger because of Kurosama's festival nearing, made her white hair billow. White hair, one eye, and an Oni. If this was the Sekiganki that Migiwa spoke of, if she was the Onmyoji who'd kidnapped Nami and wielded the Morio, saying, "You might be kidnapped and eaten by an Oni, you know," then there was only one thing for me to do. I leapt forward to close the distance, using my fighting spirit to fend off the heavy feeling in the air impeding my movement. I gave a shout in order to break apart any hesitation about swinging the wooden sword at something with a human shape. The rough winds blew at my back. The footing wasn't bad. The rocks beneath my shoes acted like starting blocks at a track and field event and helped me move forward. I often ground my teeth at my bad luck, but perhaps I was being saved to be used all at once in an event like this. This wouldn't have been possible indoors, and as the sword of nature pushed me past my limits, I struck fast, sharp, and far. That was the type of ideal blow burned into my heart. That roaring blow must have closely resembled that of the rook who won in a match, could strike from one end of the arena to the other. Faced with that reconstituted blow of mine, the one-eyed Oni wearing noble's clothes, the color of a sabaki, narrowed her right eye and gave a derisive laugh. My no-questions-asked attack brushed past her without any feeling of contact. But the picture caught by my retina was an after-image of the white face and a red eye. The air wavered. The air moved. Past the illusion that had disappeared was blue darkness. At the edge of my vision, I saw red and white. The speed at the end of Komochi increased. I can't stop? The tip of my sword went further than I intended, and my will was shaken as the sword kept heading down. I felt the not quite painful shock in the arm that gripped the sword. The person who shifted around to my side thrashed the arm that held Komochi as if she wanted to immobilize it. And a moment later than I'd predicted, though the timing overlapped perfectly, that shock attacked both my hands. Komochi smacked onto the rocks on the ground, and in a counteraction, my arms went numb. I love her. I heard the mocking voice faster than I could readjust my stance as she stepped onto Komochi on the ground with one foot. I was cornered. No matter how light she was, I didn't have the physical strength to lift the wooden sword with someone stepping on the end of it. There were basically two choices left to me. I could let go of Komochi and somehow try to manage, or... Before I finished thinking about what to do, she took her foot off the back of the sword. Suddenly freeing up Komochi caused me to stumble. And before I could readjust my stance, she lightly leapt backwards. I couldn't see any big preparatory steps before she did that, and it really seemed like an effortless motion. She was suddenly at a distance far beyond where I could reach. This person was shorter than me, lightly leapt up the rocks and looked down from there. She narrowed her opened right eye, and a sharp white fang peeked out as she looked down upon me and said, "Okay." By Kohaku, did she mean the precious gem amber? Her red eye was more like that of a tsubaki flower, more like a ruby or a carbuncle. If she was awakened, that meant that she was sleeping up until now. Amber was a phantasmal stone that held living things and plants in long-lasting sleep. This person who'd asked me what era this was. I do love her. She squinted her right eye, eyebrow moving to the side as she stared at the water with a slightly troubled look. The tide hadn't receded yet, and the stepping stones didn't peek out from beneath the water. The difference in height between the high and low tides on a day with the spring tide was over 2 meters. She was shorter by at least 15 centimeters than me, so her feet probably wouldn't even reach the ground. Even if her feet did reach the stones underneath, it'd be no use if the waves were above her nose and mouth. And more than anything, the tide was really strong right now. Saying those words in jest as a parting, she jumped into the ocean. The wind made her red clothes billow, but she just jumped an unbelievable distance against that strong gust. But even a ridiculous jump like that wasn't enough to reach Hiroshima. After passing the apex of her arc, gravity would pull her down to the water's surface. If she had just waited a few more hours, that light body of hers would have easily been able to cross over to Hiroshima. Right before she landed in the ocean, the water around her feet surged. A concentric ring of waves appeared as if something had suddenly pushed upwards. And then she stood atop the water with white waves surrounding her feet. No, she was standing on something beneath the water's surface. The something that she stood on started to head towards Hiroshima. And then that small body traveled further away and vanished into the night. Sacrifice. By sacrifice, could she mean... She really is so cool. As expected, I woke up as usual. See, this is the thing about this game, is that there's so many points that you could find yourself like, I'm not really into this. This is a little bit of a slog, or like the flow chart's really complicated. I'm not sure if this is giving me what I want. And then Kohaku shows up, and you're like, well, fuck, I gotta do it for her. I gotta do it for her. I hope that you're getting a sense of what 2008, 2009 Runa was going through emotionally and spiritually. It was a little too early to be called morning yet. It didn't happen often, but in times like this, the ability to wake up with an alarm clock was a precious treasure. I woke up from my nap without anyone noticing. I managed to get the smallest amount of preparation done before going to sleep. I quietly left the room, past the hall, and then outside. Probably would start raining on the way there. If I fell into the ocean, there was a high chance that I'd drown. Even then, I headed towards Hiroshima. The further I traveled from Inasaka, and the closer I got to Hiroshima, the stronger the wind got, as if to prevent people from sneaking over to view the festival today. The dragon god wanted to prevent me from entering Hiroshima. The The strong winds felt like they would blow me away. I clung to the rocks for support and endured until the wind died down. Rain hadn't really started yet, and I didn't really care for how many times I'd been hit by the tall waves. I yelled in defiance against the wind. I shouted to encourage myself. I sought shelter in the cave that blocked the wind. I was finally able to take a breath. Alright, now this is the same up until where we were previously, so... Now, you see, we have a different choice in the history. Whereas previously she was only focused on Migiwa. We now have a choice. So because we were on the Migiwa route, sorry, and we can't actually do anything on the Nami and Kohaku route, we're gonna go to Migiwa. I was also concerned about Natsume-san, who Migiwa was chasing around and considered the kinky. During the time when I didn't have an eye on either of them, I hoped that they weren't having a fight and getting injured. The sword that Natsume-san had stolen from the Suten group of the Onikiribe. It was said that it was constantly sealed in order to hide it from the eyes of the Sekiganki who engaged in covert tactics to obtain it. Then the question was... There should be someone who told Natsume-san. She had to have been told about the existence of the sword in order to steal it. It would have been someone who knew about it and wanted to do something about it being a sealed item. And then, that was probably the Sekiganki. As someone who'd been engaged in subterfuge to obtain the sword since long ago, I didn't really believe that they'd act like a normal human. And then... Kohaku knew about the Suten group. Was that person the Sekiganki? The one who taught Hiroshima's priest, the Nakata, about a faith in Kurosama that was also a one-eyed onmyoji. Or she was the Sekiganki. And then Natsume-san and I probably visited the Nakata mansion 8 years ago in the summer. I might be thinking around in circles, and I might be way off base, but I still felt like it'd be faster to meet Migiwa this way than to search at random. The one who managed all of Kurosama's rituals, the current head of the Nakata household, Nakata Munetsugu. And now, so, one thing you may be wondering is, has this person's name come up before? And I think it's possible in some routes and in some routes not, but I want to show you all how much of this game we haven't been reading so far. So this is the dictionary. There's a lot in the dictionary. When I was playing this, I was obsessively reading every entry. So let's just show you how many dictionary definitions we have not read. If people want, maybe I'll make like an ASMR video of me just like reading dictionary definitions ASMR as like a separate thing, but I am not going to read them here. But as a great visual novel thing, I think we really need to appreciate how they've got an entry on Alpha Centauri, cults, visual K-style, Uesugi Kenshin, and like balding hair, Kappa ointment, Gone with the Wind, the movie. Like, you know, this is a good visual novel dictionary, I think. Anyhow, I decided to head to the Nakata mansion. The storm... When I crossed over the stepping stones, the storm has been... bit my tongue. I need to stop biting my tongue. The merciless rain created large raindrops, and the thrashing wind and the height of waves was several times higher than it was before. It was close. Let's just suppose, if the storm's timing were a little bit faster, it would have been this strong when I was crossing the stepping stones. and as we previously established, Shoko would have died. I clenched my teeth to stop the shivers running down my back. I didn't come to Urashima to play some innocent adventure game. I was prepared to risk my life. It was a good thing that I recognized my actions from now on might put my life in jeopardy. I stood at the entrance of the cave and sighed. The frightening wind and rain turned what should have been an island on land into a world filled with water. Should I dare to venture out in this world, or should I wait for the weather to settle down? Alright, so last time we did not wait, and that was necessary for various purposes, but we're gonna wait this time. I couldn't continue to wait forever. I knew that. It was more suitable to stay here. It was likely to be too dangerous to move in what seemed like the peak of the storm. I wasn't in perfect condition since I just traveled across the stepping stones and my stamina and vitality were already low. It was better to stay and watch from this cave for the weather to clear, or at least until I recovered some of my stamina. That was my decision, since I also needed to prepare for a prolonged battle. If possible, I would have liked to warm up by a fire and dry my clothes, but I had neither a fire nor fuel to start one. I squeezed my clothes and water poured out as if they were soaked. Which reminds me I need to do my laundry after this. I was going to wait until either the weather or my stamina recovered, but I'd rested and fell asleep at some point. When I woke up, I didn't hear the sound of the wind or the rain. Putting my head outside, no raindrops fell on me. The incredibly strong wind had also completely disappeared. This wasn't the calm before a storm, but the quietness after one. The tension in the air was even higher than before. It was the same uncomfortable feeling as when we passed through a long tunnel to Unasaka, and it irritated the air around my eardrum. I'd heard the average diameter of the eye of a hurricane was 40 to 50 kilometers, enough to cover an entire town. Though the rain clouds on top had vanished, there were still swirls of clouds as if they were sealing off the island. It wasn't twilight yet, but the sun was on its way down and hidden behind a wall of clouds. The weather and time weren't clear, and it was almost appropriate to call this something like twilight. I left the cave and headed to my target, the Nakata mansion. I left behind the large, wondrous stones lined up by the beach as I headed towards the interior of the island. As I walked, I soon encountered lush scenery. Since the northeastern part of the island was mostly forbidden, it was very natural. The sense of deja vu persisted as I walked on through the thin road through the forest. I think, according to my memory, it's not that the memory was erased from my mind and I forgot. I just couldn't find it. I hadn't lost my memory. I just lost the method to trigger it. Like how you can recall a forgotten word after hearing the first syllable. The scenery in this forest acted like a primer and drew my memory up from the depths. I didn't remember just about everything, but I definitely knew this path. If I continued along to here, far off in the distance, I could see drops of red light. The density of red kept increasing as I got deeper into the forest. I didn't even need to get close to realize. Tokosaki no Tsubaki. The flowers, which never withered naturally all year long, fell due to the external forces. I guess transient flowers are made to scatter, after all. The branches of these trees were still red. Tsubaki might just be blooming out of season, but I saw dots of red as I looked down. The scene burned in my eyes, and the sound of raindrops falling from thick leaves knocked on the door of my memory drop by drop. My sealed crimson memory was probably being drawn out. I was swallowed by red. Sinking. I was sinking in a sea of blood. The middle of that redness was filled with The sporadic sound of voices surrounded me. This was corrupted by the noise. My memory suddenly came back and I let out a ragged breath. My head hurts. Maybe it's because I tried to drag the memory out by force. As my heart pounded, my head also throbbed. Tears came tumbling down. I'd forgotten, but in the past, Natsume-san and I had come to this island. And the reason Natsume-san didn't return was... she'd been cut down by him. The priest of Hiroshima and a practicer of Kuroryu. I continued moving forward as I pondered this. A place where Natsume-san could be cut down. For example, it was like a jigsaw puzzle with no frame, and I'd forgotten what the original picture looked like. Using that analogy, I couldn't fill in the pieces from the side, so I had no estimate of what to do, and I filled in some random parts. However, if I unexpectedly hit on the right location and fixed the pieces in place, the area around it, one by one, might... The pieces of deja vu somehow piled up on top of each other, and the dead weight of each compressed them together. Useless by themselves, the fragments of memory all congealed. I knew this. This was something I'd known. The Nakata mansion is further ahead. It was nothing but an empty shell. There's neither Nakata Munetsugu nor Natsume-san, nor Migiwa chasing the sword, nor Nami nor the Tsubaki spirit Kohaku. There's no one at the Nakata mansion. It was almost twilight. Whether or not this was a good time for divine rituals, twilight, embracing both day and night, was good for meeting those not human. It was the time of gloaming. Had Kurosama's festival already started? I needed information. Alright. Should you check out the mansion or ask somebody? Check out the mansion. Do we want to snoop around or do we want to talk? Pay no mind to me making safety saves. Are we check the mansion. All right, we'll check the mansion. Sarah, I have to say your instincts on this are perfect for unlocking things but not proceeding down the Migiwa route. Which also I think speaks a little bit to the lack of intuitive design of this game, which in some ways you might think, oh, that's bad design, because the thing you think would give you the most information actually doesn't, or like you don't have enough information to make the choices. But I do want to take a moment and defend this game's weird, vague, obtuse like dialogue choices, in that if their like goal was to make you play a lot of really circuitous and interwoven routes and sort of like uncover a mystery, having you go through various things where stuff is never exactly what you expect it to be, it does accomplish making the player feel like they're sort of like flailing around in these early stages. So I think that's actually good design from that point. Now, whether or not the translation is always making things clear is a very different point. But in terms of like the design, I actually do like, I do like how obtuse it is at some points. I decided to leave the mansion immediately. The warehouse was a standard, suspicious place, but to search it I'd need a key. Before I found a key, I noticed a study. Sorry, I gotta turn my air conditioner on. It's hot in here. I lightly ran my finger over the shelves to confirm. No dust. As expected from someone who looked so sullen, the owner seemed to be rather meticulous. The Japanese-style room with a tatami mat reminded me of my father's own room. Though my grandfather also looked like a sullen person to people who didn't know him. I didn't necessarily dislike Aoi-sensei's classics class, and my grade in it wasn't too bad, but the books here were written in an unfamiliar font. Because of my grandfather's occupation, I was a bit used to seeing cursive calligraphy, but there was no helping it. I decided to call and ask. I really do like how they're like conveying the people talking to you on the phone as if they are ghosts from beyond here. I do like imagining that every time you talk to someone on the phone, it's like talking to a ghost. In other words, the sea god's shrine continued in a straight line past the stepping stones. I had crossed the stepping stones during the low tide at dawn. Low tide occurs twice a day, roughly speaking, and it should occur every 12 hours, so it would be today at twilight. In the end, what I found out was it was a useless book about personal matters. It's already this late. If I don't hurry, should I cut straight through the mountains or go in a semicircle around outside? Would I make it in time if I started now? Alright. It seems like I'm just in time. Tsunami's not there. I hadn't heard the sound of anyone moving through the underbrush. My mouth was quickly covered before I could even let out a scream. Should I use my elbow or my leg? I couldn't use a back fist since my wrist was captured by the joint, which limited my movement. Are we gonna resist or stay still? I mean, I know which one it is. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna stay still. I knew who this was from the voice. Jeez, what was Migiwa doing at an important time like this? Look at her face! I love the way that this game, like, selectively zooms and pans over CGs. This is like quintessential. This is excellent. Look at her fucking, like, ridiculous combat outfit. She had a form-fitting jacket on her upper body with chainmail beneath. On her lower body, she was wearing something like baggy work pants tied up at the ankles. It's true that something like this was a fighting uniform, but it really gave the impression of... The fact that she used English in that. She tapped the protector on her forehead as she said that. Her arms and legs also seemed to be equipped with protectors. Now that we'd met up, we turned our gazes towards the sea god's shrine. It was the time when the sun was on the brink of setting, at the moment when it gave off its last bit of light. When thinking of a ritual, what comes to mind is a long formal ceremony where an ox would be brought out to the shrine. The life of the ox was extinguished in a blink of an eye. Its head was completely severed and sunk beneath the waves as an offering to the sea god. Perhaps the sun was enticed and drew in the blood of the ox's head before it turned bright red for an instant before setting. The curtain of night fell down and drew the Nakata ritual to a close. But even so, I've never used a real sword, so I didn't know, but I've heard it takes a great deal of skill to cut down even a thin straw mat. I've heard that in the past the corpses of criminals were piled up high and used to test the sharpness of blades. However, the thickness of flesh and bones was different for a human and an ox. Not to mention that one might miss when cutting down a living ox, and to be able to sever the head in a single blow like that's pretty amazing. She implied that her boss could do something like that. It seems she wanted to settle the debt herself. The occasionally high waves washed away the ox's blood from the surface of the shrine. The surface had been reflecting the glow of twilight. From this far away at night, it was hard to tell the blood from the tide. The wind blowing from the sea continued to make a low roar like the ox's grudge. It was as if they were summoning something. A cold shiver ran down my back and caused all the hairs to stand up on end. Her face looked stiffened and bluer than mine as she nodded. There was no mistaking this frightening sensation. And Natsunesan, who was carrying the sword. Alright! Are we gonna observe or jump into the front? We are going to jump into the front. Because this should be, if I'm not mistaken, the very last choice of the route. And so I've rushed against the wind straight for the stone shrine in order to stop Natsume-san. She gave a restrained swing, not meant to hit anything. However, the miasma from the sword froze my legs in place, and the remark that came out of her mouth froze my heart. Natsune-san didn't hesitate as she rushed across the swaying bridge towards the stone shrine. As she said that, Natsune-san swung the sword in her hand. With that one swing, Nakate Minutsuka was asking if she'd really been killed. Natsune-san stayed silent and nodded, confirming that. Oh, that's reassuring. They found a way to reduce it from an annual sacrifice to like a generational sacrifice.
神の身元にとどまり続けることになると聞いた。浦島のわだつみは目にしただけでも狂うという恐れ忌むべき存在だ。その身元にあり続けなければいけない魂は未来永劫狂うほどの恐怖に苛まれ続けるのだと聞いた。
それは
違わないだろう。要するにあなたがニエと捧げた人間は、あなたが切ったあの子は今も苦しみ続けているわけだ。だから私はあの子のために、果たせなかった約束の償いのために、永遠の苦痛からあの子の魂を解き放つために、浦島が海に眠るわだつみ、黒狂うを切りに来た。
Here's the thing, is that I actually love Kaya as a character. I just hate that she's Shoko's sister. Cousin. I forgot their technical actual relationship, but I mean, like, functionally they're sisters. She's a really good character, and like when we get to her route, it's gonna be painful because you'll really be able to tell, like, they had like such a good fucking setup in a thing that they really just wanted to go hard on a trope that I do not really care for. As if there was no way to avoid it, he opened his eyes and pierced Natsume-san with a gaze sharper than the sword in his hand. The voice she raised in objection had a tiny bit of joy in it. So why did it frighten me? Natsume-san held up the sword in her hand. Shake. The power of the sword distorted the surrounding air. The black impurity swallowed the light of the stars and the moon. She wasn't speaking loudly, but her voice was filled with the power of an Oni and reached Migiwa and I. She wouldn't hate someone who had sinned. If there was any way to solve a problem without a sacrifice, she'd find it. It was just like the effects of a cold. It was dangerous and should be in a threefold box with red earth between each layer to provide interference from the outside.
剣の木は体も心も狂わせる。あれを見たせいで死んだって人の記録も残ってるのか。あの人みたいに長いこと持ってると魂まで歪んでもおかしくないわね。なら早く夏姉さんを止めないと。そんなこと言っても橋は落とされちゃったしね。距離はこんなものだけど泳いで渡るのなんて無理。少なくとも私には無理って言っておく。決着がついて戻ってくるまでこっちからも手を出せないかな。ここでグズグズしてなければ。ここでというより一昨日の夜彼女が剣を抜く前ならば結果は違っていたのかもね。
And it seems words wouldn't get through to them anymore as they both drew their blades and swung. It was the number one in Japan with the power of an Oni versus the successor of the Nakata Kuroryu. Sparks flew as blades collided.
それは神さえ切る剣だそうだ。人である私を切れずにいる君が神を切るつもりだったのか。
黙れ。
ふん。速さもある。威力もある。得体の知れない力もある。
A strong voice indicating he didn't feel the miasma from the sword, Nakata-san said this.
それらに越される程度であれば君の前に立ち続けることは不可能だ。しかしだ、なるべかやそういったものが通じる相手には人の君にもかなわないだろう。
これも避けるか。
避けると人であった君を切った私には鬼に食い荒らされた無残な技など届きはしない。もはや斬新すらも忘れたか。普通の人間なら今の一撃でも死んでいるところだ。そうそれだ。その鬼ゆえの回復力が確かに負傷をものともしない不死身に近い体があればいろいろと便利かもしれないが、それを当たり前のように享受するようになった時君の心は鬼と落ち人と
黙れ。
そうだな。そろそろ問答はおしまいにしよう。数の人たちで終わりにしよう。不老竜は800年の間に古き技の改良と新たな技の工夫によって人を切るのに都合がよい法律を重んじた権利を得てきたのだ。先ほど儀式で使ったように古典のままの技もいくばくかは残っている。それは赤眼白髪の本名字鬼一方言が祭司と共に伝えたかの将軍が鬼に振るった技なのだという。さあ受けるがいい。
やめて。
Nakata Minetsugu swung vertically to the side. I could see what would happen. A red tsubaki blossomed and fell. Like a tsubaki flower, Natsune-san's head. A red pomegranate ripened and fell. Like a pomegranate, her head. A red spray of blood gushed and fell out. Migiwa used all of her might to stop me as I ran for the cliff. I didn't know if she grabbed me by the joints or not, but it hurt as I tried to pull myself free. Because of the pain, I mostly calmed down from the blood rushing to my head, but I'd been robbed of reason. Besides, there's no way to get there other than to the other side, so haphazardly rushing wouldn't do any good.
伝説の鬼や主典同士など首だけになっても恨み事を語ったというわけ。なるにかえ君はどうだ。
Blood spewed out of her mouth.
何事だ。
Words weren't coming from her mouth.
この黒煙のような。
まずい。剣の色が。
The sword, which had been white as bone, was now stained red by Natsume-san's blood. The sound like sizzling. Viscous steam started to rise from the pool of her own blood. The color wasn't white like water vapor or red like blood, though. It was black like storm clouds which held lightning and rain.
あれが剣気の血を吸って動き出したのよ。あれって剣が。
Then a roar, like something from the island, came out from within the pitch-black clouds. The body of what had been the Oni Natsume-san emerged from the swirling miasma. The ominous miasma, coming out of the sword, eroded Natsume-san's clothes and even transmuted her body. Up until now, she'd been an Oni, but Natsume-san had looked like the person I knew in the past. The Oni holding that black sword in her hand was no longer the Natsume-san I knew. Natsume-san was just like how Migiwa had named her. Kenki. Yeah, right? Like, right? The yellow eye and the, yeah. Kenki, an Oni possessed by the sword. That was who Natsume-san was now.
その程度。
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
私の技が届かない。技の必要性どこにある？
Whether he was hit by the miasma of the sword or not, I could see that Nikata Munetsugu's movements had slowed.
今なら私の腕に当てられそう。バカね。これだけ離れててこれもよ。一触一刀の間合いであんな力に当てられたらまともに動ける方がおかしいって。むしろ立ってる根方宗次がおかしい。次はそれで鬼切りなんて務まるの？だからそれだけあれが規格外なわけよ。で、根方宗次。次の人たち終わりにするから。お前にフロークリーンを目覚めさせ門を開かせるために見えてなかった。私にも実は一撃で楽にした。それでフロークリーンに魂を貪られることになるんだがな。いざや開け瑠璃宮の門。
Just as a key is inserted into a keyhole. Stab. The tip of the black sword thrust into Nikata Munetsugu's chest. The white clothes rapidly stained with pomegranate red. And the sword, which had been hard to see in the darkness, reflected the light from the gate that glowed deep red.
まずいわ。今の完全に向こうにいた。向こう？黄泉から帰った体のみならず心までもが鬼になった。
The Oni laughed. The Oni laughed in a high-pitched voice and threw the dead body into the middle of the ocean. A roar. There was something strange about the column of water ahead of us. Like a tentacle, it wrapped around the body of Nikata Munetsugu and dragged him down into the sea.
開くぞ。フロークルの夢、瑠璃の都へ至るもんだ。 剣ここまで派手で分かりやすい奇跡は私も見るの初めてよ。右はちょっと吐きそう。いやこれは吐く。
The color drained from her face and a profuse sweat broke out all over her skin.
確かにこれは私にも関係ない。大してきつくなさそうな顔で言われても。ちょっと失礼。はい、とかいる。ちょっと背中とかさすってくれると助かる。
The sound of Migiwa retching was drowned out by the different roar. Below, the glowing blue stone shrine was the roar of a waterfall in a roiling sea. A large, vast body of water pushed back, revealing the ocean floor, and this area was around 30 meters in diameter. The spray of the waves from the boundary of sea and the air intricately reflected the lapis lazuli light of the gate.
あれはブリキューの。
Yes, the stone shrine of the sea god itself was the gate. Perhaps I should call it a torii made of stone. The closest image to it that I'd seen so far was England's Stonehenge, the monolith. On top of those two pillars on the side was a flat surface like a tabletop. On that surface now was where Natsume-san and Nakata had been fighting earlier, also known as the Sea God Shrine. The two pillars supporting that surface were also taller than 10 meters and unbelievably large. And past the gate created by those three large slabs of stone, if it was just an arrangement of rocks, I'd be able to see scenery on the other side, but a strong light filled the gate. Past the stones was a place far different from our world. Natsume-san jumped down from the gate, which was 10 or more meters in height. Perhaps it was because of the strong backlighting, but now I couldn't see anything but a pitch-black black shadow.
ボシャ、あれはもうダメだ。あれってなんで夏姉さんのことそんな風に言うのよ。
I didn't care if she used the term kinky or anything, but Natsume-san was still Natsume-san. To use only that, Miki was already.
分かってるでしょ。あんた、あれがあんたの夏姉さんだと本気で思っていたりするわけ。それは見た目も結構変わって、まあ面影ぐらいは残してるかもしれないけどさ。でもね、オさん、よく見なさい。私みたいな見る目がなくても、ただ見るだけでわかるはず。寄れば肌が感じ取るはず。あれは内から外に染み出たものだから、見た目以上に中身の方は。しっかり別のものに変わっているはずよ。
I knew that. The laughing voice of which should have been Natsume-san wasn't a calm one that I knew. My head hurt. This was the pulse of the sword that Migiwa was talking about.
あの剣はあらゆる力の根源。根の国の王が手に入れし、神の一物。あれはそれに疲れて落ちた。
Natsume-san was no longer the carrier of the sword, but a puppet being used by it. No. She was being transformed into part of the sword itself.
おさ、あれはもうあんたの夏姉さんじゃない。その辺きちんと理解してる？
It was frustrating, but I couldn't do anything but nod.
じゃあ、あんたの役目はもうおしまい。説得可能な身内ってアドバンテージがなくなった以上、一般人の出番はかけらも残ってないわけよ。じゃあね、おさ。都合よく海が割れたみたいだから、私は行くわ。行くって。のんびり援軍待ちしてると、決定的な何かに間に合わなさそうな雰囲気ですね。そういえば、議員の人が。さて、今頃何やってるのか。負けるつもりはないけど、勝てる見込みもないわけだから、あんたはさっさ さと逃げるといいわ。
It was at least 10 meters from the top of what should have been the ocean floor. Migiwa walked to the edge of the cliff.
しかも降りない崖かもだけど。おさ、じゃあね。
Without any hesitation, she lightly jumped down. At some point, she'd tied them to the trees nearby the cliff. The light of the gate glinted off the silvery threads she held. She wasn't just jumping down, but using the wires to support one portion of her body as she leapt from rock to rock. She jumped the last few meters to the ground.
ないわよ。私も手伝うって約束したじゃない。
Migiwa was hit by the miasma the Kinky was putting off and looked like she wanted to draw back. She faced the Kinky, who displayed no human emotion at all, head on, with a stance that was too low. From low to high, she gave her body a strong twist as she ran. Perhaps Migiwa wanted to pay back the debt from an earlier time, since her attack definitely hit the Kinky's flank. Moreover, by using an opponent's speed to counter, that blow carried quite a bit of power. But the Kinky didn't seem to pay any attention to that and kept single-mindedly attacking. The injury on its side was immediately plugged by all the miasma. Pretty good CGs here.
わけにはね。
Migiwa staggered but continued to fight. However, hit with the poison of the sword, the peculiar movements that had overwhelmed me were stopped. By a hair's breadth, I stepped in between Migiwa and the Kinky and stopped the swing of the sword. Whether it was because the Tsubaki wood was strong or because the sword wasn't good as a weapon, it only ate halfway into the wood.
ちょっとオサ、あんた何しに来たわけ？夏姉さんまだ諦めてないのと、あなたの手伝いに決まってるでしょ。あらあら、一般人が面白いご冗談をお言いで、私に勝てないオサがいたところで物の数にも入らないでしょうに。そうかしら。そうですとも、私さ、今の右輪になら結構楽勝で勝てる気がするんだけど。
The miasma from the sword seemed to affect each person differently, and I could still move normally. Her sword flashed, indicating that she wasn't going to let me be anything more than a decoy. I see. I could tell from the way that Migiwa gripped her blade that she was mentally prepared, though I was the decoy. I rushed forward, indicating that the roll wasn't enough for me. Right now, Natsune-san wasn't the Natsune-san I knew, and she didn't dodge at all, so I did hit her, but... It's true that my weapon didn't seem like it would make any noticeable damage, but...
切るたびに湧いてくる黒い瘴気が片っ端から傷口を塞いでくれるのよね。不死身の死なない怪物と戦う時って何かセオリーあったっけ。36系逃げ。
But we couldn't do something like run away.
ほさどうすればいいと思う。ヤマタノオロチと死者のやったっけ。火で傷口を焼くって話がなかったかしら。惜しい。それはヒドラとヘラクレス。カテゴライトはあったわよ。
Migiwa corrected what I'd said as she dodged Natsume-san's attack. Both stories dealt with heroes exterminating multi-headed snakes, and their basic points were roughly the
ち
same.
なみにヒドラは9頭で、ヤマタノオロチは8頭で、私の地元のマータンコは7頭のヘビ。ヤマタノオロチとマータンコは叫びたり。
I love that they're doing this in the middle of like this super tense fight. Truly Aoi Shiro. Migiwa's blow slashed Natsume-san's windpipe, but
正気にクラクラ酔わされてるのはむしろ私たちの方かもね。
could the Kinki possessed by the sword not be defeated unless its head was lopped off with one blow?
右は
The counterattack sent Migiwa flying, where she couldn't get up. She tried to use her pole as a cane to help her stand, but the miasma and her injuries robbed her body of movement. Then it was just up to me.
夏姉さんもうやめて。誰だ。わからないかな。夏姉さんと違って8年でだいぶ変わっちゃったけど、私よ幼い証拠よ。アキコさんの孫で夏姉さんの妹みたいな。
Natsume-san acknowledged me and nodded.
夏姉さん。なっちゃん。小さくて
She was saying that child didn't have a body like mine.
あの子は死んだ。殺されたのよ。
That The Kinki swung the sword down. I barely managed to escape the actual sword, but the miasma stole all my power and caused me to fall to my knees. I felt that it was the end for me. The sword made a large swing. Natsume-san's breathing was something I knew well. If it was Natsume-san, in the next moment she would swing the sword down. I heard the rush of wind, but the blow still hadn't come. Maybe she had come to her senses and recognized that it was me. I fearfully opened my eyes and saw that the black sword was held high above my head. However, it wasn't a good thing. The dark, chaotic eyes of Natsume-san held no reasoning nor affection. Wrapped around the ebony wrist, corroded by the sword, was a glassy string, which shone in the light of the gate.
はーい、ミニーさんです。
Migiwa had gotten up on one knee and was using one hand to control the wire that was wrapped around Natsume-san.
いくら長がおとりだからって、いくら私がしばらく休んでたからって、私を無視して長狙いっていくらなんでも身内びいきが過ぎるんじゃないの。私の方が基礎能力も踏んだ場数も身長も脅威も上なのにね。
These two are like fucking. This literally is like some fucking shonen series yaoi. This is girl yaoi. This really is girl yaoi.
さりげなく言いたい放題言ってない？気のせいよ、気のせい。私は長と違って敏感だから、あんまりそいつに近づきすぎると当てられちゃってダメなんだけどさ。それなら距離を保てばいいだけの話なのにね。とことんまで邪魔させてもらうわよ。てなわけで元気
Natsume-san, no, the Kinky used all of her might to try and free herself from those bonds. But even then, Migiwa didn't let go of those wires. She was up on one knee. In that stance, she had kicked the pole that I'd dropped to the ground. Migiwa's pole, with the hidden sword inside, rolled along the bottom of the ocean and landed near me. When I held it in my hands, it felt heavier. I felt the heavy weight of steel. On the opposite side of the shining gate, a dark hole was cut at the very bottom of the cliff where the ocean had been earlier. The shadow of a person with wounds all over her body appeared from the middle of the cavern. That person, or more like the Oni, is what I thought of when I looked at her. I met her on the first evening after we came here. She used the tip of her fingernail to stroke her closed left eye. Grinning, a white fang like that of a beast peeked out. Migiwa pulled on the wires with all her might. The arm, along with the sword, dropped to the ground. Migiwa used the last of her strength to kick away the arm that was still gripping the sword. The Kinky, who had lost her arm along with the wires attached to it, looked down at Migiwa, who was on the ground.
そんな夏姉さんが好きだったんだから。そうじゃ夏姉さん鬼なんだから、おたけがすぐに治るんでしょ。夏姉さんこれだけボロボロだともうダメで。私目方さんにもあなたたちもとてもたくさん切られたでしょ。その傷を塞いでいたのがあの剣の力だから。私が鬼になったことには何の意味もなかったかもしれないけれど、最後にしおちゃんが無事だって分かったこと、あのまま死んでいたならいつでも見ることができなかった。夏姉さん、私夏姉さんみたいになりたくて剣道をずっと続けてるんだよ。強くなったんだね。しおちゃんが戦えたことも少しだけ、ほんの少しだけ嬉しかったわ。ねえ、私？しおちゃんのこと気にかけてくれてありがとう。はあ？あなたはしおちゃんのために自分を顧みず自分の手を汚してくれたでしょ。それが私の仕事だからね。友達だからじゃなくて。まったくあんたが剣を奪わなければ。ごめんなさい。私がダメ。
I do love this line. Sorry, I'm easily deceived.
確かにかなりの大迷惑だった。でも一つだけお礼を言うことあったの。最初にあんたに負けた時殺さないでくれてありがとう。それなら今回負けた私には殺してくれてありがとうって言っててほしい。分かった。
Migiwa picked up her beloved sword that was lying on the ground next to me and took out its hidden blade, holding it up high.
おさん、恨んでくれても構わないよ。右は、いい。やっぱり私が。悪いわね。やっぱり剣気は私の獲物だった。あんたに切らせてなんかやるものか。
Hearing those words, Natsune-san laughed.
覚悟。さようなら。さようなら。夏姉さん。終わったといえば終わったし、終わってないといえば終わってないかな。もうダメ。限界。向こう。
She pointed with a shaky, bloody, stained finger. Even after Natsune-san and the Kinky had collapsed, the gate remained
あ
open.
れ、閉じないとダメ。見よ、小娘たち。
The storm, like the sound of a sleeping person, and the rumbling in the ground like a heartbeat, caused me to shiver. A black miasma wavered past the too bright light over
身に
at
染
the
みて分
gate.
かっておろう。この門の奥にとてつもなく恐ろしいものが眠っておる。わしが言いたいことは一つ。寝た子を起こす。ただそれだけだ。門を閉じてやる。剣を渡せ。お主らには荷が重かろう。
But what if this person were the Sekiganki? If that were the case, then just nicely handing over the sword, would that actually be a good idea? Moreover, the one who opened the gate was Natsune-san.
私がやります。お前が門を開いたのは血のつながった私の姉さんみたいな人だし、あなたを信用しきったわけでもないし。なるほど。だがお主が剣を使うのか。今しがたの剣気の意味も食われておしまいかもしれんぞ。それは
I wasn't strong like Natsune-san, but I also wasn't trying to use the sword to do anything outrageous like she had been either. All I wanted to do was close the gate. If it was only something like that, if I don't give the demon within any time to take advantage of me.
大丈夫だと思います。そういうこともあるかもしれない。あなたなら大丈夫だって保証もない。確かにそうだ。その通りだ、小娘。幼い証拠。ならば証拠だ。やってみせる。ちなみに、わしに限って言うなら、その証こそ立てられねども、勝ちの目は見えていた。わしはその類のものの扱いには慣れたのだし、この身に流れる血は特別だ。代を重ねて薄まったとはいえ、門を閉じる程度ならば造作ない。おやすみやつのようだ。それ以上のことにできた。安姫様。なんでもない。気にするな。まずはお主がやってみるといい。もしもお主がしくじったなら、そちらの娘を襲えぬように手から足からバラバラにしてやる。感謝する。
Ah, Kohaku is so cool. It was unlucky to say something like that. But still.
おさ、ちょっと待った。そんなふらついた状態でやって前者の鉄を踏むつもりなの？ふらついてるのはそっちでしょ。大地、休んでる時間なんて。
That one deep within Kuro Kuru had the same composition as this sword. But the difference in the total amount of power was too great. Even if I could endure the sword, I'd be helpless against Kuro-sama.
あんたが鬼の一種なら簡単に解決できる問題なんだけど。鬼？鬼は人の血に宿る力をすすって物が物にできるからね。
Just checking the counter in the corner.
って感じは皿に似てるでしょ。これ、お皿の上にある血の形から来た象形文字なわけ。そしてお皿に乗せられるのは捧げられる供物。人の血は神、すなわち鬼に昔から捧げられてきたわけよ。なんてね、長は人間だから右は手を出して。あなたの血をもらって絶対に封印成功させるから。あ、
Yeah. All right. We have an important moment. Do we think that this counts for resetting? I think we have to reset the counter to 0. I think we have to set that counter down to 0. Yeah, hold on real quick. I'm sorry, everyone. Sorry, everyone, real quick. I've got to set the counter to 0. The gashes on her palm weren't from crossing swords, but compared to the strength in a tug of war. Yeah, right, like, the VOD for this one is gonna be fucking killer. Like, this is the peak this game has been this entire time. Like, so much good shit. And also... it's been 0 days! Since the last Yuri Vampirism incident now. I moved my tongue around it as if I wanted to heal the wound. Like... I bit down on her finger as if I hated the arm that did that.
ている場合か。
Abruptly hearing that voice made my heart want to leap out of my chest.
すするならすするで急げ。もうあまり時間もない。
For an instant, we had completely forgotten about the person who was looking at us in astonishment.
分かってるわよ。
Ah! I stood in front of the gate with the sword in hand. I lifted it high above my head.
剣よ。剣よ。瑠璃九門の鍵たる剣よ。
I could feel the power flowing from the handle I held. It was incredibly black, viscous power. From the palm of my hand to my wrist, my arm to my shoulder, and then both arms to my chest to my heart. For a moment, I felt as if I would be sucked in by the darkness of that power. And I swallowed up by the muddy current.
大丈夫。
And for some reason, I felt as if I knew how to use this power. It's not my mind that knew, but my body, and the blood flowing through it. I felt as if I remembered. There were two things I needed to do. Yes, only two things. One was to protect my heart, and the other was to direct the power of the sword to close the gate. If I'm unnecessarily distracted, then the flow of power back up and cause black swirls to form. Concentrate, concentrate. I have to concentrate.
こんな時に冗談とは一体何の冗談だって。
I heard Migiwa's voice, but I chased it from my mind. Probably because I was in the midst of concentrating with all my might.
瑠璃九と至るもの。 門の光が
Slowly faded.
無事に閉ざされるようだ。
This time, the voice came from above our heads.
いつの間に長が剣を使ってる間にひょいって軽々と。この鬼め天狗と呼ばれることの方が多かったな。かあ、鼻高あんまり高くないくせに高ところでお主ら門からの力が水を遠ざけ海を割っていたのだが、その力が途切れた場合、海はどうなる？海はそういうことはもう上り終えるのを待つと間に合わなかったかもしれんし、お主らが海の牧師となったところでわしは胸も腹も痛まんのだ。剣も沈むわよ。ああ、必要ならば後で拾うさ。見つからないかもよ。ああ、あの時本当に沈んでいればもしかすると良かったのかもしれない。ああ、王さん、私からも一つ言っておきたいことがあるの。こんな時に何？こんな時だからなんだけど、実はお湯名は太陽を表すっていうか、私が行けるのは水の際までなんちゃって。私ってば胸はこんなでも体脂肪率低いからさ。
So she really would have drowned after falling into the ocean back then. So this was the reason she declined Momoko's insistence to go to the ocean.
おさ、あんたのおかげで剣は取り戻せたし、門も閉じれてミッションコンプリート。今でこの右輪のうすらバカ。
I threw away the sword and reached out my freed hand and grabbed onto the arm of Migiwa, who was going to be washed away.
何やって。
Migiwa's face was right in front of my eyes. Her clothes and hair hadn't dried yet.
ちょっとおさ、気づいてすぐの発言がそれ？うちのおじいちゃん しようとか言わないだけマシよ。じゃあもう少しだけなら気づかなくてもよかったのに。何しようとしてたのよ。おとといの晩あんたが私にやったこと。おとといの晩っていうと何も焦ることないじゃない。他意のない人命救助活動っていうか、前に助けてくれた時のお返しです。お返しならもうとっくにしたっけ。した次の日の朝みんなの前で。
Just thinking back on that made me blush. That Migiwa. She did such an outrageous thing. Fucking ooh ah! Oh my god. Perfect. Ah.
忘れられてたらその首絞めてたわよ。怖い。だけどあんなの利子にもならないしな。私なんか口の中どころか肺の中まで長野をたっぷり入れられたのに。気持ち悪い表現しないで。
Migiwa didn't respond. The knee supporting her upper body bent and she slowly collapsed.
ちょっと右は。
I couldn't support Migiwa as she was collapsing and she fell down on me. We lay side by side and gazed up at the stars. As if to expose our wet bodies to the salty wind, we sprawled out spread eagle on the rocks, totally exhausted. My back was glued to the ground. I didn't even raise my head up. If I opened my eyes, the sky would be right in front of me. I couldn't see anything but sky.
ところでおさ、何よ、あの剣さ、持ってないけどどこやった？あんな重いのと右輪をセットで泳ぐのなんて無理。和尚に借りた木刀もどっか行っちゃったな。はあ、海の中探させられるの考えたら今から憂鬱だわ。あ、探すだけ無駄だと思うよ。なんでよ、偶然誰かの手に入ったら。
I shook my head.
あれはもう人の手の届かないところに行ったから。
Deep within my consciousness, I'd seen it before the light of the gate had disappeared and had flowed past its doorway.
カエサルのものはカエサルに、神のものは神の身元に。
That thing had returned to the place where it should have been in the first place.
とりあえず次の引き潮までしばらく休もうか。
And here we go. First time reaching the end of route credits. We did it! We did it. There is like an ending CG too. But like we've completed Migiwa's route. We did it. We did it. We did it. And also, more importantly, it has been 0 days now since the last incident. We are now resetting the timer, and yeah. So here's the thing. I'm pretty sure Migiwa's route is the one that takes the longest to get to Vampirism. So every other route, it's actually going to escalate faster. And I think in Kohaku's route, it like goes almost like right off the bat. So, you know, people missed a momentous occasion. Hey, if you're listening on the VOD, like, this was the moment where I was like, this game might be good. Now again, I can't tell you if this game is good or not. This is an impossible question for me to answer. However, I'm having a lot of fun. and we are going to continue having a lot of fun with Aoi Shiro, because we have... Next we have Yasumi's route, and then we have Nami's route, and Kohaku's route, and Kaya's route, and then the Grand route. So we've got a profound amount of game left for us. It'll start to go a little bit faster as we get further along, but not by a lot. We'll probably only be able to, like, skip, like, you know, those first 4 hours of game that we did. We'll probably be able to skip those, but other than that, no, we're gonna be in it, because this game's got a lot of full scenes in all of its branching pathways and everything. Here we go.
本当に全国大会に来たのね。今年は私が経験積んでポイントゲッターとして奮闘したのもありますが、去年の夏以来ボサ先輩が鬼神もかぐやの強さを発揮してますからね。島で鬼でもつけてきました？その逆よ。鬼退治をして視線をくぐってきた。詳しい話は教えてくれませんけど。
During those few hectic days, I was like a completely different person. After that, there was no contact from Migiwa for a while. Her cell phone number was either disconnected right before summer had ended or something else happened. I wondered if Migiwa was chasing a different Oni now. Then...
はい、元気にしてた？聖女の皆さん。なんでミギーさんがここに？いや、同年代っていうか、オサとは同じ学年だし。なるほど、学校の応援。いやいや、むしろオサ先輩も個人的に応援しに来てくれたと。なんで高い旅費かけてわざわざ応援しに来るわけよ。それはもう記念すべき全国大会なのですから。 翔子さん、今年は注目されてるんですよ。地区大会ではオール一本勝ちでしたし。おお、それはひところでどうしてももちは私が選手だって発想にいかないのですかね。剣道部だったんですか？なんで私の舞台をあれだけ荒らしてもらったわけだし、あんたの舞台で暴れてやろうと思ってさ。で、オサのところのブロックは？ええ。じゃあ最後まで当たることはないわけだ。翔子先輩、そろそろです。それじゃあ先に行かせてもらうわ。
Because even if we parted now, we'd be sure to meet several hours later.
決勝戦で。
Yes, yes, yes. And that is that. Thank you for joining us tonight. We went a little bit further, a little bit longer, about 50 minutes longer than we normally do, but I mean, like, we had to get to the ending. But yeah, so that's Migiwa's route, and that was the first route that I did yay so long ago. And we're gonna pick up next week, starting a completely different route, all the way back at the beginning. But yeah, thank you everybody for sticking with us for this, and we will see you next week. And Sarah, thank you for experiencing this vintage Yuri nostalgia with me. Alright, good night everybody!